He thought his pre-dawn ritual was unseen. He made a desperate pact at a desert shrine to never know hunger again, and built an empire on spiced skewers that tasted like heaven. But his recipe demanded he sacrifice a king every 8 days, not with a blade, but with a spoon. The dusty air of Sabangari, a bustling marketplace town on the fringes of the Sahel, hummed with the usual commerce of life, the call of spice sellers, the braying of donkeys, the rhythmic pounding of millet. But for the past 3 moons, a new, singular aroma had begun to dominate the evening breeze, a siren song of smoke, meat, and mysterious, tantalizing spices that made mouths water from 100 paces. Its source was a man named Dongi. He arrived not with a caravan, but alone, a lean figure with eyes the color of sun-bleached clay and a smile that revealed little. His stall was a model of simple efficiency, a wide, shallow makarashi grill over a bed of glowing charcoal, a wooden board for slicing, and a single, ornate, tightly-lidded calabash from which he would sprinkle his magical seasoning. His product was suya, the beloved spiced skewered meat of the north. But this was unlike any suya Sabangari had ever known. From the first night, Dongi's suya created a fervor. The beef, lean and tender, was cloaked in a crust of ground nuts and a red-brown spice blend that sang with heat, sweetness, and an uncanny depth that lingered on the palate for hours. Men claimed it gave them visions of success, women whispered it stirred old passions. The town's chief, Alhaji Bello, a man of refined taste, declared after his first bite, "This is not mere food. This is a memory of a place I have never been." Dongi was polite but private. To inquiries about his recipe, he would merely tap the side of his nose and murmur, "Secrets of the desert wind. Herbs that grow only where the sand meets the stars." A gift, not a recipe. His prices were high, but his queue grew longer each dusk. He became known as my Dandano, the flavor merchant. Yet, behind his successful stall, Dongi maintained one peculiar ritual. Every morning before dawn, while the town slept, he would walk to the scraggly outskirts with a small, covered basket, returning empty-handed. His only companion was a magnificent, proud feathered rooster he kept in a secluded, well-tended coop behind his rented hut. The bird, he said, was for good luck. No one thought to question it, not while his skewers brought such delight. His reputation was built, brick by delicious brick, on a foundation of absolute secrecy. Alone in his hut, Dongi's smile faded. The truth was etched in a grimy leather-bound book. The rooster, named J.A., was no ordinary bird. Dongi had been a failed herbalist's apprentice, ostracized from his own village for dabbling in coercive charms. The book spoke of the Tsintsazusha, the binding of the heart ritual. The principle was sympathetic magic. To bind a community's loyalty and open their purses, one must use a creature of pride, the rooster. Fed the illusion of wealth, crushed river quartz and cheap, glittering mica, and purified through its own digestion. The waste of the bird, burned to a sterile ash, would carry the promise of the treasure it consumed. Each week, Dongi performed the ritual. He would coo to J.A., feeding him the glittering grit. "Eat the false stone, my king, and give me the true gold of their devotion." After 7 days, he would collect the droppings, dry them in the searing sun, and burn them in a sealed clay pot. The resulting grey ash, cool and odorless, was his master spice. He mixed it with ground peanuts, ginger, and cayenne. This was the source of the addictive depth, the umami that whispered of unkept promises. Dongi watched the villagers return, their eyes eager, and felt not guilt, but a cold triumph. He had turned excrement into esteem. In Sabangari lived a respected herbalist, Malam Shuibu, a man who understood the balance between the medicinal and the mystical. He, too, enjoyed Dongi's suya, but his trained senses detected a discordant note beneath the symphony of flavor. The intense craving it produced in his patients, the way they would neglect their own wives cooking for this stranger's skewers, struck him as unnatural. Food should nourish the body and please the spirit, he told his sharp-minded daughter, Fatima, not bind it like a chain. Fatima, who assisted her father and had a keen, observant nature, shared his disquiet. She began to watch Dongi, not at his stall, but in the patterns of his life. She noted his solitary nature, his pre-dawn trips with the basket, the meticulous care he gave to his lone rooster, which seemed an odd priority for a busy merchant. One evening, as she purchased suya, she dared to ask, "Malam Dongi, your rooster must be special. Does he inspire your recipe?" Dongi's eyes, usually vague, sharpened for a flicker. He forced a chuckle. "Inspiration? He is a loud alarm, daughter. Nothing more. My secrets lie in the spices, not the coop." His dismissal was too swift. Later, Fatima saw him feeding the bird from a special bowl, the contents glittering faintly in the sunset light. Stones. Her suspicion hardened into resolve. She confided in her father, who grew grave. Stones fed to a bird. This speaks of old, distorted practices. The body cannot digest stone. It transforms it, but into what? We must learn the rest of the cycle. They decided to investigate the dawn ritual. For 3 mornings, Fatima's younger brother, a silent shadow, followed Dongi to the outskirts. He reported that Dongi did not go to pray, but to a hidden depression where he would sit and sort through something in his basket with intense focus. The boy could not see what it was. The puzzle deepened, and Malam Shuibu's concern turned to a sense of duty. The community's health, he felt, was being compromised for a fleeting taste. The flavor was a mask, they needed to see the face beneath. The breakthrough came not from following Dongi, but from watching his refuse. Fatima, reasoning that a man so secretive would not discard evidence carelessly, took to inspecting the barren area behind his hut at midday when he was napping. One blistering afternoon, she found it, a small, secluded midden away from the main trash piles. Scattered there were not food scraps, but strange, brittle, grey-white clumps that bore no resemblance to normal chicken droppings. They were studded with undigested, gritty fragments and gave off a faint, acrid, chemical smell. Her heart pounding, she collected a few samples in a leaf wrapper and took them to her father. Malam Shuibu examined them, crushed one between his fingers, and smelled it. His face paled. "This is kashi," he said, "but it is wrong. It smells of bitter medicine and fire." He then performed a simple test, placing a piece on a hot iron shard. It did not just burn, it smoked with a thin, blue-gray vapor that smelled exactly like the first, haunting note of Dongi's suya hitting the grill. The connection was monstrously clear. He feeds the bird stones and potent herbs, Malam Shuibu concluded, disgust etching his features. The bird's body struggles with them, creating a corrupted waste. He then burns that waste, and uses the ash in his spice. Fatima felt a wave of nausea. The glorious suya, the taste the whole town craved, was seasoned with purified chicken dung. It was an abomination of hygiene and trust. Her father placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Knowledge without proof is just rumor, daughter. We must witness the full act, from feeding to firing, to be certain. Then, the community must know." They planned their move for the 8th day, the day of the burning. Before first light, Fatima and Malam Shuibu positioned themselves downwind of Dongi's hut, hidden by a thicket of thorny acacia. They watched him perform the eerie ritual. They saw him feed Saki the glittering paste from a stone bowl. They saw him later, with a grimace of concentration, collect the resulting droppings with a tiny bronze shovel. They watched as he built a small, hot fire in his dedicated pot behind the coop, not with wood, but with dry grasses, and burned the collected waste to ashes, carefully sifting the resulting powder into his precious, ornate calabash. The evidence was irrefutable. Malam Shuibu decided the confrontation must be public and undeniable. He sent word to the chief and the elders to gather at the main crossroads of the market at sunset, the very hour Dongi's stall opened. As the red sun dipped, Dongi began his usual routine, fanning his coals, laying out skewers. A larger crowd than usual had gathered, but their mood was tense, silent. Just as Dongi reached for his spice calabash, Malam Shuibu stepped forward, his voice booming in the quiet. "My Dandano, we have come to admire your art. But first, tell us truly. What is the source of your legendary yaji, your spice?" Dongi, sensing danger, clutched his calabash. "Malam, I have said, desert herbs." Fatima then stepped from the crowd, holding aloft the small clay pot, still sooty from the morning's fire. Herbs. Or is this your true secret? She flung a handful of the cold, grey ash onto the ground before him. The ash from the droppings of your poor rooster, whom you poison with stones. A collective gasp ripped through the crowd. Dongi's face went slack with shock. Lies. She seeks to ruin me. But Malam Shuibu spoke, methodically and damningly, describing the 7-day feeding, the collection, the burning. He presented the strange droppings themselves. You have fed the people of Sabangari not the food of kings, but the refined filth of a tortured bird. You have broken trust for profit. The crowds all curdled into revulsion. Men spat out half-chewed meat. Women wailed. The chief, Alhaji Bello, rose, his face a mask of fury. This is an offense against our community, our health, and our faith. Dongi, cornered and exposed, could only stare at his precious calabash, now a vessel of disgrace. The fallout was swift and merciless. Dongi's stall was overturned, his grill smashed, and the ornate calabash shattered under the heel of an enraged customer. The chief declared him haram, forbidden from ever selling food in Sabangari or its allied towns. He was to leave before dawn, taking nothing of his trade. The townspeople, feeling betrayed and physically violated, demanded the source of the corruption be destroyed. Saki, the magnificent rooster, was seen not as a victim but as the engine of the defilement. With great ceremony, the bird was taken from its coop. Dongi, broken and weeping, was forced to watch as the herbalist, ensuring no part of the pact remained, prepared a cleansing fire. Saki was placed in a cage of thorns, and the very ash from Dongi's pot was sprinkled upon him before the pyre was lit. It was a harsh justice, meant to sever the eternal bond and purify the community. The strange, spicy-sweet smell of the burning bird and ash filled the air one last time, a grim parody of the once-cherished aroma. Dongi fled into the gathering darkness, a penniless outcast once more, his promise of never knowing want again fulfilled in the cruelest irony. In Sabangari, the story of the flavor merchant became a lasting proverb. Do not crave the taste that asks no questions, elders would warn. Remember the suya made from the rooster's promise. Fatima and Malam Shuibu were hailed for their vigilance. The marketplace eventually found its rhythm again, the air clearing of that singular, addictive scent. But for a long time, the people ate their simple, honest food with a newfound appreciation, understanding that true nourishment can never come from a hidden, corrupted source. The crossroads where Dongi's stand once stood remained slightly barren, as if the very earth wished to forget what had been offered there.